Hello, Star Trek fans. We are ReBingeIt, and this is the Star Trek Prodigy podcast. My name is James.
And my name is Kim, and we are watching and overanalyzing every episode of Star Trek Prodigy, like true Star Trek geeks. Hit it. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we have the penultimate episode
Yes.
of our podcast, because season 2 is nearly over.
Which is very sad. Although, it would be a good time for Netflix to announce season 3 right now.
That would be ideal for us, and everything revolves around us, of course.
And probably good Aaron as well.
Yeah, I'm sure he would appreciate it. So today we're talking about season 2, episode 17, Brink, and episode 18, Touch of Grey. And before we start in on this one, do you have anything to say about the last episode, which was Ascension? Mostly, it should have just been called Asencia, parts 1 and 2.
Yeah, very enjoyable episodes. Asencia makes a great Star Trek villain.
Yep. I totally agree. She's really good. And we're doing a pretty good job of building up the tension here as we get towards the end of the season. So for us, there's only 2 episodes left and still a lot of wrap up we need to do. But this show is pretty good at cramming a lot of stuff into 20 minutes. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure it'll be quite exciting.
Well, we will be watching the next 2 episodes right after we record this.
That is correct. I'm very excited. I mean,
Yes.
I'm sad to end it, but also I know it'll be good. So I'm excited to watch.
Agreed.
Well, today I have the notes, as usual, for the first episode, and James has the notes for the second episode. So
Yes.
Are you ready to begin?
Absolutely.
All right, then let's talk about Brink. We open on stardate 61914.3, which is then followed by the words, months ago.
Wow, I can't believe that the viewers didn't see that and go, oh, this is clearly several months before
This is
that.
months ago, yeah.
Because we know the random numbers that seem to be starting.
Yes, this is obviously for those of us who don't care about or don't understand Stardate. So thank you very much, Prodigy. And we find Asencia using some tech to create a wormhole and yelling at her workers. I'm guessing she's not in favor of unions.
Oh, she's one of those bosses, isn't she?
Completely. It's like the beatings will continue until morale improves. Well, anyway, as the workers cower around her and tell her that they have to shut down the simulation being run, she says, Gwendala escaped Solum in a ship with this power. If Starfleet can harness it, then we can do even more.
Oh, did you see that as a simulation? I thought that was the actual technology.
Well, I guess I thought they were building something or trying something, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's not dangerous. Whatever they were doing, it was dangerous, whether or not it was a simulation or they were trying to actually open a wormhole. Well, I guess what she's talking about here when she says Starfleet can harness this power so we can do even more, I guess she's talking about the Infinity.
Yeah.
But I don't know how she has the Infinity, because the last time we saw it, it was being consumed by the Loom.
Well, that's a good question. How did she figure out how the Infinity was working? Did they scan it?
Well, you're jumping ahead, but Wesley does say at some point that he fought off the Loom and he needed to make sure that Asencia got this technology, right? So he probably did it. And the way she learned about it was by reading his mind, which he probably allowed to happen.
But she already had some of the technology. So you're saying that he gave her some way of getting to this initial point?
Oh, you mean before Wesley appeared?
Yeah. Because she says, if Starfleet can do this, so did she pull it from a Starfleet computer?
Yeah, that's a good point. The timing is funny. If she supposedly got this technology from the Infinity,
Yeah.
how did she get the Infinity? I don't know. We don't know. They didn't tell us.
Yes, I feel we need to know this.
It's a good question. I mean, I suppose Wesley could have arranged for her to get it sooner,
Yeah.
before he turned up. That's
Yeah.
possible.
Right. I assume maybe she managed to find some way to steal it from Starfleet.
Yeah, it is possible that she just used her old credentials to get in and steal information, because there's no way Starfleet would have disabled her password. You know, like when somebody leaves the company and they have to disable all of your access to everything.
Yeah.
In this particular case, they ought to have a switch that says like turned evil or was an undercover alien or something. And they just, that's what happened. And then it just disables all their access.
I'm picturing now a form that
It's a
Starfleet
form.
people fill in. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
somebody in Starfleet IT looking at the reasons, and it's got possessed by alien,
Mhm.
turned evil.
Yeah. undercover person from the future.
Mirror universe duplicate.
Yep. Taken over by a prophet.
That's another good one.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty funny. Wesley Crusher now interrupts by appearing and telling Asencia that the technology she's messing with is a danger to us all. And she then says, "How interesting," in an awesome way. I mean, she manages to sort of deliver that. It's like that's that line she delivered in season 1 where she just went, "I can't."
Oh, yeah.
This one is epic. I rewound it 3 times and listened to the way that she said it. It was really funny.
The skill of voice acting. You've got 2 words. And you managed to put so much more into that than just reading the lines.
I know. Jamila Jamil is great at this. And Asencia here does manage to really quickly get the drop on Wesley and take him prisoner.
Yep. When I watched this for the first time, I did initially think, wow, Wesley really needed to think this through a little bit more.
Yeah, but we learn more later.
Right.
Over on Voyager, Gwyn is recording a log that says Tars Lamora will have to wait because Voyager and the Protostar are on the way to Solum to find and neutralize the time-space technology that Asencia used to attack them. I mean, Good luck with that.
I just love all the space scenes. And we get these great shots of both ships. And I love the difference in scale between the Protostar and the new Voyager. Voyager Mark II.
Yeah, it's like a whale and its tiny baby. Janeway is telling her senior staff plus Gwyn that they need to find out where Asencia got this technology. She calls it a diplomatic powder keg that may explode, and I thought that was an interesting way to describe it. It's not exactly a diplomatic problem she's got going on here.
Right. I do find it very odd here that Tysis makes comments like, oh, this could lead to all-out war. And it's like,
that's her plan.
I'm fairly sure that in her attacking and trying to destroy 2 Starfleet ships and using time weaponry against you, she's pretty much already committed an act of war. Yeah. And you are at war. This is a jump back to almost Deep Space Nine, when the Dominion were sending ships through the wormhole and were building a fleet to actually fight with the Cardassians against Starfleet. And you're like, guys, you're already at war.
Yeah. You're in denial.
Wake up and smell the coffee. Yeah.
Well, I guess, though, if you're thinking about it in terms of it just being Solum as one planet, Solum declaring war on the Federation is not that big of a threat.
True,
but this is different. She's taking technology from somewhere, we think the future.
Yeah.
Now she has an advantage, even though she's just one planet. She's now got a technology advantage.
That's true. I guess in normal circumstances, this wouldn't be a big problem. But given that she has the technology advantage, you probably should really consider what's going on here.
Right.
Think strategically.
Gwyn speaks up, suggesting they let her and the Prodigy crew go in first to gather intel. And the doctor says, well, it doesn't technically violate the orders that they have, nor does it violate the Prime Directive because it is her home planet, except it kind of does because she only exists because of something Starfleet did in the first place. But let's not worry about that.
Yeah, we'll just look at it in the narrow view. We won't say the Starfleet making contact caused all of this. We'll forget that bit.
Mm-hmm. Gwyn also wants to rescue her father, and since Illthuran was captured by Asencia, Janeway says we can offer asylum, and he might have valuable intel.
Yeah.
The young crew is listening outside the door when Gwyn comes out and says they've got a mission to plan. And then they all switch to their original outfits from season 1.
Yes, I do like Jankum's outfit.
Oh, yeah, me too. And Dal's outfit is cute, but it's funny because it's just like, you didn't have to switch back to those outfits, but we don't want to come up with new outfits, so okay.
Oh, I think that might be a nod back to the fans. Go back to the style from season 1.
Yeah. Well, their mission is to find out about the secret tech and find Gwyn's dad, and then they can use a one-time site-to-site mini transporter to escape. Of course, it only has enough power for 1 emergency use. I mean, then take 2. Take 4. Give everybody 1.
1 each. Why not?
Come on.
Do you think the concern there was they could only use it once before they could put up some type of transporter block?
Yeah, I think that's what they say, actually, that once it's detected, then Asencia would be able to stop it, yeah.
Why don't you keep your transporter block on all the time?
Yeah. But anyway, in comes Majel, who says she has resigned from Nova Squadron in order to join this mission. She reminds them Wesley said they need to stay together.
Yes, he did.
Rocktalk shows them a short-range cloak generator that they can use to stay hidden. It's a bit of a Harry Potter invisibility cloak.
Is it just me, or did that look like a Cardassian device?
It certainly had the color of one.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we've seen that sort of shape and style before with the Cardassians, so I'm thinking that's another nod to classic Trek.
I mean, I used to say this all the time in the Deep Space Nine podcast, where if we've got the ability to build transporter technology, sometimes it's almost ridiculous that we can't do other things, like build a personal cloak for each person. But no, we can't do that because that would make too many things too easy.
Okay, headcanon time.
Yeah.
I think it's because of the treaty with the Romulans. Cloaking technology isn't typically studied or investigated by the Federation because of the limits of the treaty.
Well, they only did that because it makes the story so much harder to get around. It's almost like if you're writing a story set in the 90s, it's a lot easier to put people in jeopardy because we didn't have cell phones. Whereas now, you have to try a little bit harder because everybody's got a cell phone. And every time in a movie when somebody doesn't have coverage on their phone, you're like, ugh, come on. So to me, it's like the same thing. They put that into the story just because, no, that's too easy. We have to have a reason why we can't develop it. We're very spoiled by current technology.
Imagine how much worse it would be in the future with Starfleet.
There's certainly some stuff on Discovery, which is set way, way in the future, where they have like the personal transporters and stuff that change the way the stories work.
Right.
Voyager now arrives at Solum, staying out of sensor range, I guess, but we should have tried hiding behind a moon. I mean, that's what we usually do.
I didn't see any moons, but they're a great thing to hide behind.
Janeway reminds them of their mission and says to not engage with the Vaunakot, and says Starfleet will disavow them if they get caught.
So this is a Mission Impossible episode.
I guess so. Rock gives the Bribble baby to Antanas to watch, and then we all beam down. And they land on Solum and see all of Asencia's weird time factories in the distance, and she has a lot of them.
Oh, that was a great shot, because you see there's like dozens of them, and they stretch off into the distance.
Yeah. Once inside the city, they see dreadnoughts and also those scorpion robots from Season 1 patrolling everywhere, and it seems pretty grim in the streets.
It seems the regime might be a little oppressive, seeing as it's just scanning people randomly as they walk along.
Yes, it very much has a let me see your papers vibe.
Yeah.
The crew is clumsily sneaking through the city under their invisibility cloak.
This did feel very Harry Potter, yes.
And then they receive an encoded transmission from the uprising, which originated in Illthuran's observatory. So they decide to go there. But why wouldn't Asencia have already raided this place? That's suspicious.
Or installed guards.
Yeah. Once inside, Gwyn chats with the librarian Dreadnought, but he's no help. He doesn't know anything.
Yep.
And then we learn who sent the message, and it's all we could have hoped for, because it's the young version of Asencia. I was so excited when this happened.
They led us down a path as well, because when she first appears, she pulls a gun on them, and she speaks in old Asencia's voice.
Right. Well, she says she really doesn't want to turn into that nasty version of herself, which is funny and good.
Well, she describes her older self as a monster. And, that is one of the things I love. The idea of your younger self being disgusted with what an older version of yourself becomes. It's a concept in storytelling I always really like.
Yeah.
And I would recommend people check out Joshua Falkov's book, Bunker. I won't give any spoilers, but there's something related to that in there, which I just love.
The young Asencia tells the crew about her other self's temporal accelerant vaults.
Oh, is that not a great name?
Yeah. They ask how the Vaunakot could have advanced this quickly, and the young Asencia lets them know that she's captured a traveler, and everyone is very upset by this news because now they figure out that's probably Wesley.
Yep.
She says Illthuran is being loaded onto a prisoner transport right now, and Wesley is being held somewhere else. Zero and Mijel at this point are concerned that they can't save everyone because they would have to split up. But Gwyn decides they should split up, even though they only have one transporter. They figure that once they find Wesley, he can get them out of there. Dal protests, saying, I thought we were supposed to stick together, but he does agree.
Yes.
And Gwyn says the plan is to save everyone and not leave anybody behind.
Right. Dal was quite correctly pointing out that they were told not to split up.
Yeah, I think this still shows maybe some immaturity in the decision-making.
Yeah. But at the same time, Gwyn is in a terrible position here because she's discovered that Illthuran, her father, before he became the diviner, is actually a pretty reasonable guy.
Yeah.
He's actually, not a bad person. I guess the correct thing to do would almost be she'd have to recuse herself from this decision because it's somebody she cares about.
Although it is part of the mission, too, at this point.
Yeah.
As the split team approach the gravimetric power conduits where Wesley is being held, the invisibility cloak starts glitching. They manage to get inside, but not undetected.
Yeah.
And then over on the prison transport, we see Illthuran and the members of the council, still in their fancy ceremonial costumes, being loaded onto a train.
So do you think at this point, Illthuran's taken the time to point out to these two, well, you morons didn't listen to me, and look what happened to Solum. Good job, people.
He's like, I told you so.
It's probably little comfort, but this is a full 10 on the I told you so scale.
Absolutely. The crew easily breaks them all free, and the young Asencia heads back to the Resistance with the Council, who kind of stand out in a crowd with their outfits.
Right. I have to comment on Dal going back to original form, where his idea is to steal the train.
Yeah.
I think when he goes back into those original clothes, all that Ferengi upbringing that he received comes straight out.
I mean, why not take the train?
Fortunately, Majel is the voice of reason.
Yes. She also, though, at this point says, despite the odds, we seem to be on track for a successful mission. So now we know absolutely everything is about to go haywire.
Yeah.
You cannot say stuff like that.
In Majel's podcast, she has to be talking about, even though these plans are crazy and illogical, they do seem to work.
Yes. Back with the other half of the crew, Murph is trying to squeeze through a small hole to get to where Wesley is being held.
Yep.
And there's a funny little scene where they hold up the body of a soldier that they killed or knocked out to fool other soldiers. I don't know. It was very strange. And something that happened on Deep Space Nine, but very strange here.
Well, they were using the classic Weekend at Bernie's trick with a possibly dead Vanakat soldier, so...
Yeah. That was a little grim, I thought, for a kid's show.
It's a proven technique.
Well, anyway, they finally get in, and they set Wesley free, and he says they're right on time. Turns out this was all in Wesley's plan.
Oh.
He purposely came here to guide Asencia into building the wormhole technology needed to send the protostar back to Tars Lamora.
That was awesome. It was all part of his plan.
Yeah.
Very good twist.
But why didn't he just build it? But anyway.
He needed Asencia too. He's just following what he saw in the timeline, is my guess.
I guess so, yeah. There's a funny exchange here as they are not thrilled with what his plan has caused. It almost started a war, and Zero nearly died, and he's like, almost and nearly, no big deal. I mean, he's not wrong, but it is quite funny.
I love this version of Wesley. It's almost down to he's almost like one of the prophets.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
I knew how it was all going to work.
I do see him a lot more as Doctor Who, which is just a little bit of chaos. Yeah, a little wacky, not always completely focused on whatever is right in front of him, which would make sense if you had a lot of power to move between timelines. Your brain would get really mixed up about things.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he says once the timeline is restored, Solum will be led into a better future by Illthuran. Unfortunately, when Wesley tries to use his powers to send them back to Voyager, he collapses. He says his mind is frazzled and he can't concentrate.
Yeah.
So Rock knocks down the wall to get them out.
It's useful having a 500-pound walking rock creature with you when you need a little bit of muscle.
That's true.
That's the second time in the episode that the fact Rock is giant and strong has come in useful.
What was the first?
She knocked out one of the guards.
Oh, yeah, right. It is funny that they have both Rock and Murph, though. They probably should have split them up.
Oh, yeah.
It's only at this point that Wesley realizes they didn't all stick together like he told them to, and he gets very upset. He says they didn't need to save Illthuran. He would have been fine once the protostar went through the wormhole. He says now the future's uncertain, and Gwyn is devastated that she made the wrong choice.
Oh, this is funny. I liked it when he said, "Where's the one with the dingle-dangle thing?"
Yes.
I liked here how he points out, from the beginning, I told you, you have to stay together. Incredibly, Dal was actually in the right for a change when he brought up they were told to stay together.
Right.
Also, in defense of the crew, Wesley could have been a little bit more specific.
Yeah, because he's like, I told you, you didn't share this entire plan.
Right. Because Zero says, I thought you meant unified in our purpose.
Yeah, team spirit.
So part of it does come down to Wesley not spelling it out.
Yes. And now Asencia and her goons walk up with the rest of the crew at gunpoint.
Yep.
Asencia is very smug, saying this ill-fated plan has taught her that Illthuran was a danger to her future.
I think you might be understating just how smug she is.
She is very smug. She's about to shoot Illthuran when Gwyn gives Dal a look, and he pulls the transporter device out of the back of his shirt using his tail, which is very cool, and throws it at Wesley, who catches it just as Dal shouts 2 to beam up. Like, why didn't you say 10 to beam up or something? I don't understand why he said 2.
Yeah, everybody please beam him up.
Well, anyway, Illthuran and Wesley, the two closest to the little transporter device, beam away and materialize on the bridge of Voyager. Wesley immediately collapses, saying, "We're all in danger," and he doesn't know what happens next.
Yes.
And that's the end of the first episode.
On another absolute cliffhanger.
Yeah, I liked when they beamed away and Asencia just shoots and everybody ducks because there's nobody there anymore. I thought that was funny.
Asencia did make the most fatal mistake of all villains. When you've got to shoot, shoot. Don't talk.
Yeah, don't make a little speech.
Don't revel in your smugness.
You don't have time for it.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up Brink. Then let's go to Touch of Grey, episode 18.
Okay. Now, before we start, is this only the second episode in the season where we actually have a pre-credits teaser?
Yeah, that was a surprise. We're so used to that in Star Trek, but we don't really use that here in season 2.
Well, we open with a beautiful show of the two ships over Solum and Janeway recording a log. She's not enjoying the waiting, and Chakotay gives her a gift commemorating the anniversary of her first command, which was 14 years ago, which was Voyager. Janeway even brings up early retirement, mentioning a farm, and Chakotay says maybe that's not the time for that.
Plus, farms aren't good for retirement. They're such hard work.
Yeah. Sorry, Janeway, you should not retire.
No.
Because while you're out there, you can make a difference. To quote Kirk, don't let them promote you. Don't let them transfer you. Don't let them do anything that takes you off the bridge of that ship. Because while you're there, you can make a difference. And I think Janeway is a captain in that vein.
Oh, yeah, totally.
She's called to the bridge, and we get a repeat of Illthuran and Wesley beaming in, which happened at the end of the last episode. We go into the opening credits. In sickbay, the doctor reports Wesley's neural pathways have been damaged by Asencia's mind extractions, and he remarks that Wesley's special abilities won't be returning anytime soon, but only time will tell, which I think is a terrible pun.
I don't know how he would know that.
Oh, I think he's very good at guessing.
Look, I know on Prodigy in particular, we've only got 20-some minutes. We got to get through things quickly. But it would have made more sense if he had said something like, he doesn't know. Like if Wesley had said, will I get my powers back? Or Janeway had asked that question or whatever, right? If somebody had asked the question and the doctor had just said, well, I have no way of knowing.
Only time will tell.
Yeah.
Janeway wants some answers as to what's going on, and Wesley spells out the plan. He had to be captured to allow Asencia to build the temporal weaponry. Wesley nudged events so the kids could use her tech to build a wormhole sending the protostar back.
And nobody likes this plan.
No.
Except Wesley.
Yeah, especially when Janeway says, what?
Well, yeah. I guess what they don't quite recognize is that this timeline is already in danger of completely collapsing and being eaten by the loom. And if they don't understand that they're already completely about to be destroyed, then doing something crazy like this wouldn't make sense to you.
Right. It's, what would you call it? A Hail Mary.
It's a Hail Mary.
Wesley continues, saying that now Asencia has captured the crew, he's in the dark, like everyone else. Well, they don't have long to dwell on this, as Asencia is broadcasting a message claiming alien spies have been captured, and shows the crew.
She's such a dark lord now.
This so reminded me of the Cardassians with their sort of show trials and putting everything on TV. Maybe she got some pointers from them.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, the point of this is she's trying to bait Janeway to come to Solum. And I liked how Antenna says, going is unwise. No, duh.
Yeah. But he also says she's more valuable than the cadets, which seems a little harsh.
Well, this doesn't stop Janeway, as she puts together an away team consisting of the Doc, Wesley, and Chakotay. She can always use Chakotay as cannon fodder, or perhaps as a phaser shield.
She says, let's get back in the saddle, which means give me a phaser rifle and a tank top.
On Solum, the crew is now on the same train, heading into the Outlands. Gwyn is stressing over her mistake of splitting the team up. Majel points out Asencia doesn't have Wesley or Illthuran. Rock, being positive as ever, says, even good things can come out of bad situations.
Yeah, and Zero says, uncertainty is the predecessor of hope.
Gwyn's spirits do lift, and she says, we've gotten out of worse. We control our own fate. And this is completely true, and it is on a pretty much weekly basis.
Yeah.
They arrive at the destination, which looks like a large dome, and the crew is taken inside, with Asencia watching from a high balcony like a very menacing villain. It's a great tradition there.
It's like Thunderdome or Gladiator.
Oh, very much so, yes.
Mm-hmm.
On Voyager, they can't transport down, so they're going to sneak in. Illthuran wants to join them, but Janeway declines, telling him his survival is critical to peace on Solum. Meanwhile, the Doctor is talking to the Holo version of Janeway, telling her he's nervous after being out of the field for so long, but it'll be good inspiration for his next Holo novel.
Oh, no.
And Holo Janeway tells him she's read all his work. She's a big fan.
Aye.
I actually laughed out loud at that. I thought that was a very funny interaction.
It was funny.
Don't you just imagine his Holo novels being like really bad fan fiction?
Yes.
And like really unintentionally funny.
Like the books my mom reads.
I think all those books are written just by a machine.
Could be. Well, technically, that's what he is.
The away mission heads to Solum on a replicated Vonocat shuttle, and they are stopped by a large security ship, which have this great triangular style that the Vonocat seem to like.
Yeah.
And the Doctor imitates the speech of a Vonocat, and they allow them through. I wonder if they were using an older code that checked out.
Yeah, probably.
After they get through, we get the traditional Doctor's complaint of, I'm a doctor, not a covert operative.
Mm-hmm. Forced.
A little. I did love the look of those security ships, though.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The young crew are now inside the dome, which is kind of a ruin, Gwyn describing it as an ancient city from Solum's past. And Zero notes it's being repurposed so no one can escape. First hint of things are not going to go very well here.
Mm-hmm.
In a viewing gallery above, like you said, Gladiator,
Yeah.
Asencia delivers a great evil laugh as Gwyn tries reasoning with her, saying, this is a mistake. They need to get the ship to Tars Lamora or they're all doomed. Asencia is dismissive, even referring to Wesley as her pet traveler.
Oh.
And arrogantly declaring, I make my own future. And then saying, let it in. And we see she's captured a loom.
I think the way they introduce this loom is really effective.
Yes.
Because you hear it first, and we've already established what that sound is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
Jankum is great here as well. Murph is hiding behind him, and Jankum says, you're supposed to be security. Dal questions, how did she catch one? And Gwyn replies, that doesn't matter. She wants to erase us. I think Dal has an excellent technical question there, but Gwyn's point is a little more pressing.
I think it's actually, you frequently wonder why villains will do something like this, right? If she wanted to kill them, why didn't she just kill them? Because it would have been easier than this whole production. But this is actually quite cruel what she's trying to do, which is completely erase them from the timeline, making none of them ever having existed. I think that was actually, again, like how they effectively introduced them. They're using this thing that they've established earlier in the season.
So if she erases Gwyn, wouldn't that fix any problems with the timeline? Wouldn't the paradox be fixed and the timeline would be fine?
Well, they asked that question at some point, remember?
Uh-huh.
Gwyn asks Wesley that. If she were to be killed by the loom, would it fix everything? And he says no, because the problems they're too vast now.
Oh, okay.
We did cover that.
I have to go back and rewatch that. The away team have landed and they're walking to the dome through the mountains. And the Doc is already composing dialogue for his holo novel. Janeway orders Wesley and Chakotay to go to the back of the dome, and she and the Doctor head for the front, saying, Asencia wanted to bait an admiral. Well, it's time she got one.
I really prefer the tough Janeway.
Yes. This is the action Janeway that we love from Voyager.
Mm-hmm.
The crew are now fleeing from the loom, and Asencia is watching and clearly enjoying it, and her guards bring her Admiral Janeway. Asencia immediately goes into a full, smug, arrogant mode, telling Janeway, she's even more pathetic and predictable than I remembered. Remember the Voyager episode, Resistance, and the main villain in that? She is, she is exuding that level of smug arrogance.
Yeah, for sure. She just needs some black gloves.
The black leather outfit, yeah. The loom is still chasing around the crew. You now actually get to see it has some kind of collar around its neck. Gwyn distracts it, causing it to chase her through a small opening, and it briefly gets its neck stuck, and then pulling it out, it damages the collar, and we see it sparking as the loom is trying to pull it off. Hiding behind a wall, Rock points out to the others it's acting strangely, like it's sick, and Zero is able to sense fear and loneliness. Majel summarizes, it's trapped in here, just like they are. So I assume it has the time stabilization devices that they had, the little wristbands.
Oh, so it couldn't jump around, yeah.
Yeah. It seems like the thing Asencia would do.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Janeway is trying to bargain with Asencia, trading herself for the young crew. Of course, Asencia isn't really interested, telling Janeway that she knows Voyager is alone, and without Janeway in command, it would be like a fire snake without a head. And finally, she just pulls out a phaser and shoots Janeway. And great Asencia, because when she pulls out the gun, she just says, bye, and then shoots her. It's, you want to talk about a villain who just has the perfect mix of arrogance and the sort of petulance. It's her.
Yeah. I knew immediately that wasn't Janeway, though.
Back to the crew, and the loom appears to be just running around and not actually hunting them. Rock thinks that maybe they don't have to fight it. And Jankum tells her, just because it's sad and lonely doesn't mean it won't eat us, kid.
Good one.
Love Jankum. Outside, Janeway meets up with Wesley and Chakotay, telling them, I don't know how long the Doctor can stall. And I think we all saw that it was the Doctor with Asencia.
Yeah.
We go back to the Doctor, who's hamming it up, doing a very theatrical death scene.
Ow. It's quite funny.
As the rest of the team try to phaser through the entrance to the dome, Zero contacts Janeway telepathically, telling her the loom is also a prisoner. Janeway improvises, shooting her comm badge with a phaser, blowing the door open, just in time as the loom has actually cornered Gwyn. The explosion briefly shuts down Asencia's control system, and the collar drops off. The loom is free. It now turns blue and escapes, leaving the crew intact. Finally, Asencia notices the holo emitter, and the Doctor turns back to himself, announcing, it appears I've made a miraculous recovery.
Yeah, and then he immediately presses a button and disappears.
Did he have some kind of short-range transport, or was he
I don't know.
projecting his holo emitter from somewhere else?
Yeah, I don't know.
I assumed that his holo emitter was somewhere else, and he was projecting it.
That could be.
Outside, the loom is making quick work of the guards. Their weapons are ineffective, and it's just eating them. And it eventually makes its way to Asencia's control room. And for the first time, Asencia actually looks worried.
Oh, yeah, she did.
All that arrogance seems to have dried up. The crew now meets up with the away team, and Rock is very happy to see Wesley.
Yeah.
Wesley now modifies a tricorder and seems to have regained his piloting powers as he remotely calls the Vonnegut shuttle to their location. And under fire, they evacuate as more guards arrive. In the control room, the loom has now Asencia cornered, but instead of devouring her, it just disappears through a wall and runs off. Huge missed opportunity. Things just keep getting worse for Asencia as a guard returns, reporting she must return to the city. The people are revolting against her. It's just one of those days for her, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
She thought it was going so well. She was going to feed some kids to the loom. She had Janeway. She'd shot Janeway.
Yeah, and she's so surprised by this news. She's like, what?
Rebelling against me?
Against me? I'm all they've ever wanted.
We now see Illthuran is sending a message to the people of Solum, telling them the Offworlders are not the enemy, telling them to look at what Asencia has done to their once peaceful planet, and urging them to rise up, let our voices be heard. And he finishes saying the line we first heard in Season 1, there is no barrier we cannot overcome, for we are the Vonnegut.
Yep.
Asencia here looks super crabby. She has gone through the run of emotions in this episode.
Yep, which means that she's about to escalate things.
Oh, I wonder how much more she could escalate them. Oh,
Well,
taking a leaf from the Founder's playbook, she could blow up an entire city.
Exactly. She could start using some of these weapons she's building.
Yeah. The crew and the away team escaping in the shuttle fly past the orbital security station, and we now see there's 3 of them. So, is this demonstrating that Asencia is just churning out military hardware? Like a few hours before there was 2, and now there's 3?
Yeah, she's moving quickly.
Yeah.
Well, she can move in no time, basically, if time moves differently inside those vaults.
So she could be producing, 1 every couple of hours.
Mm-hmm.
If they did that deliberately, that was sort of a nice touch to show you that they are ramping things up.
Yeah, for sure.
In the shuttle, the Doctor is telling Majel he has a name for his new holo novel. He's thinking, Mission Assignment Solum, The Adventures of Dirk Danger and the Dome of Loom and Doom. Does he ever need to work on the naming?
Yes.
It really does sound like one of the books your mum reads.
What did Majel say? That is a title.
Again, who says the Vulcans don't have a sense of humor? Rock is really excited to talk to Wesley again. I totally get that. And from orbit, we can see there are fires on the planet below, and Gwyn laments, no matter what's changed, Solum has fallen into civil war. Gwyn now tells Janeway she can't leave her people in the hands of that monster. Dal backs her up, saying, we have to finish what we started. To their surprise, Janeway replies, agreed. Dal asks why, and Janeway tells them, because I've been reminded, boldness isn't only for the young. And when Starfleet is united, we can always overcome. Awesome triumphant music as we close on the 2 ships together again.
I mean, that line is basically what Star Trek is all about.
Yes. And I also feel it's a reference to what Illthuran said about together there's nothing we can't overcome.
I mean, the 2 messages are very similar, though one is just about the Vonnegut sort of keeping to themselves but uniting, whereas the Starfleet message is more about everybody across the Federation working together. But it's a similar message, yeah.
The Federation don't have that confidence in their supremacy.
Correct, yeah.
Maybe that came later when the Diviner came a little bit more evil.
Maybe. Well, we got through the first 2 episodes here. Do you want to talk about what stood out for you?
Okay. I am going to go back to what I brought up last week. I think Janeway ending with this speech is what I meant by she's been flying a desk. She's been out of the action and out of doing what's important, making a difference. And I think you said you hadn't really seen anything that had done that. I think it's more subtle, but from what we've seen of Janeway doing in this episode and then her final comments, I think that is Janeway needs to get back in the command seat. Being an admiral is a waste of her greatest skill.
Yeah, and maybe that's what they're trying to show us, which I guess is kind of a normal thing in Star Trek, where the captain, once they get older and move sort of to a desk, they start to feel kind of useless. I mean, that's kind of like life in the current world as well, whereas you get older, you start to get more cautious, and I think maybe that's been a little bit of a thing they've been showing with Janeway as well, and she feels more alive when she gets back in the saddle and pulls the phaser out. But I also think they made a point of showing that she was concerned about the Prodigy crew because they were young, and she felt much more protective of them. But, if we're going to get really philosophical, she also could be reflecting back on how she felt protective of the Voyager crew when they went out on that mission innocently and ended up stuck in the Delta Quadrant.
We're going to be out for 6 weeks,
So, they could just be sort of tying those things back together. And if you think about it that way, and how hard that would have been for her, because she was, we talk about this on the Voyager podcast a lot, she would have been sort of on her own with nobody really to confide in, nobody to talk to, or as I like to say, with the higher you get up on the org chart, the harder it is to find someone to complain to.
Yeah.
And you need someone to complain to, and she had no one, at least in the beginning. And so she might be tying some of that sort of past trauma into her current situation, which is making it all quite difficult and kind of making her more cautious, more closed in, more, I should just not do this anymore. Right? Those are the thoughts maybe that are swirling around in her mind.
And with the, maybe it's time for me to retire to the farm.
Exactly. Maybe I need to take the more cautious approach and just get out of this trauma, not give myself another one.
Which I think would be a shame, because I think she's one of the great captains.
Well, yeah, especially now that she's animated. She can live on for a long time.
Right. Yeah, we've got a whole Janeway Future Missions series to plan.
Right.
I do like seeing this more action Janeway.
Yeah, me too. I think that something that stands out for me is what always kind of happens in these stories, which is that things have to get really bad before they can get better. So this makes me think that something worse is still coming because we still have 2 episodes left and we've all sort of regrouped and gotten ourselves back together. But I guess the point is we have to do something about the timeline yet. Yeah. So that's why we probably did it.
Yeah, it does lead to how much worse does it get being captured and trapped in a murder dome with a loom?
Well, remember we thought that last season when it was destroying all the Starfleet ships. We were like, how can this get any worse? And then it did get worse.
Yeah.
So I imagine there is still something bad to come. And, we keep talking in Speculation Corner about who's going to have to pay the ultimate price. And, somebody will.
Well, yes. I'm going to point out as well, I like Gwyn's take of, even though it was possibly the wrong decision to save everyone, I feel that's almost the reverse of the Kobayashi Maru. And also the reverse of Tysis, who's like, they're a bunch of kids, who cares?
Yeah. I mean, that was harsh.
I guess you could look at it as the idealism of youth is, I want to save everyone. Nobody dies today.
Well, I do question Tysis a little bit because remember Janeway's rules of captaining. One of them is you never leave a crew member behind. So that's sort of what Gwyn was doing. She was like, no, we're saving everybody, which is exactly what a Starfleet captain would say.
Right. That would be their first take, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Think of the crazy stuff Janeway has done to save one person.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
How many times do I have to say, it's just Chakotay, leave him, who cares?
Yeah, that does happen, yeah. I do think we need to reference that her guards refer to Asencia by her name and just call her Asencia. I would have expected her by this point to have settled on something like Lord High Empress, Your Excellency, Your Supreme Holiness, something like that.
Well, what happened to Vindicator?
Yeah.
That was a great name.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think she strikes me as the kind of person who would want a title.
It is surprising she doesn't make them call her Lord Asencia or something. Grand Empress.
Precisely. I think it would fit her personality.
I guess she's been a bit busy.
Being mean to her staff and making time devices.
Yeah.
I bet she's locked all her staff in the temporal accelerant vaults. They're probably all aging years in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
I also have to point out, Jankum had a lot of good lines this week.
He had a few, yeah. Not enough. I need more Jankum.
I do think that Dr. Gnome really does need to take that course that Jankum went on of being politer to people. Because he was rude to Gwyn at the beginning, where he says about the we're letting kids at the grown-ups table.
I don't understand the point of Dr. Noam. And also, the lines he delivers, I don't know if they're meant to be funny, but they're not funny. He's pointless. Yeah. We got to get rid of that guy.
He's a walking HR violation.
Yeah, you got to send him back to the academy.
Being obnoxiously rude to everyone is not a cultural trait.
Yeah. Well, something that is standing out to me as we sort of approach the end of this season is I am really confused about what we're trying to do now with the timeline. Because if we send the Protostar back to Tars Lamora, what we're trying to do is make sure that Gwyn is created again, right?
Uh-huh.
But what's confusing me is what will Illthuran be when they do that?
Yeah.
Because have we done the same thing to create the Diviner? And we kind of, I guess, need Asencia to become the Vindicator. So are we just trying to make the entire timeline happen again, but it won't because we've already changed Illthuran?
Yeah, he's not the same person.
But we changed him in the future of that timeline, and we're trying to go backward. Oh my God, okay? I do not understand what we're trying to do.
Well, there's a lot of problems. I mean, Illthuran was a monster because he enslaved children.
Right.
He used the Kazon to kidnap people and use them as slaves in the mines. Does this happen in the future? How do you end up with Gwyn?
Exactly.
And he even broke the rules because he wasn't supposed to make a clone according to the Dreadnought, a progeny.
But the time when Starfleet introduced themselves to the Vaunakat, to Solum, that caused this chain of events, when in this timeline does that happen?
Thought that was 50 years in the future.
So from here, it hasn't it shouldn't have happened yet at this point. Because the protostar went into the future to do it?
The Vonnegut at this point in time were ignorant of the Federation and were confident in their supremacy. And the Federation started the Civil War at some point in the next 50 or 75 years. And what happened was the wormhole sent the protostar into that future that the Civil War had been raging for a long time.
Okay, I think that's where I'm confused.
Yeah.
I keep thinking the protostar is what made first contact, but that's not right.
No.
The protostar got caught up in it accidentally when they were going through a time anomaly.
Yes.
And then
it got pushed back in time.
Right. So what we're doing now is actually supposedly before the first contact was supposed to happen.
Right.
But now we've completely messed everything up.
Blown that timeline out of the water.
Because we have caused first contact at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Starfleet has been on that planet, even though I think they weren't supposed to be. But anyhow, they were there. But the timeline is all messed up anyway because of what Asencia is doing.
Yeah.
So if they send the protostar back to the past, how does that help?
Yeah.
Because they've already impacted the future in a different way, and all these people are going to be different.
Yep.
So does that mean, and I guess I'm jumping to speculation here, but does that mean that this version of Illthuran does not become the diviner, but maybe he becomes something else and he still creates Gwyn because he knows that he wants to? I guess that's what could happen. But this is so confusing.
Well, you've also got the problem, the butterfly effect.
Right.
How many thousands of people were on Tars Lamora?
Yeah.
And those people escaped and what they did in their timelines. How do you know one of those people who was on Tars Lamora wasn't actually destined to become if they weren't there, a despotic ruler of a race in the Delta Quadrant and launched a grand campaign?
All right. They could accidentally cause something bad to happen. But you could argue that because the diviner came from the future, landed there, kidnapped all of those kids and whoever else, all those other aliens, he was actually messing with the timeline as it was supposed to happen anyway.
Right. In which case, Gwyn shouldn't exist because she is actually the paradox of a ruined timeline. So if you stop the diviner from doing any of this, you end up with actually a correct timeline.
And this is kind of where I keep landing. How does it make sense what we're trying to do to save Gwyn when that wasn't a valid timeline anyway?
Yeah. Well,
and this is a big mess. But I guess this is why we have the Traveler there to try to get this timeline sorted out.
Even if the ship is sent back to Tars Lamora, there's still the issue that Gwyn needs to be cloned 17 or 18 years ago by the diviner.
Right, yeah. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter what version of the diviner does it. He could be a good guy or he could be a bad guy. That's, if we're going to get to speculation corner, I think that would be my guess, is that he'll be a different version of the diviner that ultimately clones her. But in so many ways, the timeline shenanigans are just blowing my mind. It's like I said a few episodes ago where I needed somebody to draw me a diagram because now I am so confused about even what we're trying to do. We just keep saying we're going to send the protostar back to Tars Lamora. It's like, okay, but we've messed everything else up that led to that. Okay. So I don't know how that works.
How about some speculation corner early?
Okay.
So the diviner agrees to go back on the protostar to Tars Lamora, doesn't bury it or hide it, just leaves the ship on Tars Lamora, and then actually starts a legal mining business. He actually hires, these employees.
Yeah.
In theory, they could probably find out who all the people are who end up working there and hires the Kazon as recruiters.
Gives them actual jobs, doesn't keep them as prisoners.
Exactly.
Feeds them, lets them communicate with each other.
Right. Goes and finds some of the people who need to be on there and tells the Kazon, give them a good contract, bring them on board. Hire them.
They bring manufacturing back to Tars Lamora.
Yes, and does it not as the evil diviner, but as just the mine owner running the operation.
Lets the Cation unionize. It's a great idea.
Exactly. A positive thing.
I think something like that does need to happen, yes.
And then 17 or 18 years ago, he could clone Gwyn. So Gwyn has the same sort of upbringing and, he specifically then finds Dal, Jankum, Zero, and Rock and brings them all together. So if you like, we have the same thing kind of happening, but without the diviner having to turn into...
the diviner.
Yeah, he just remains Illthuran. And the company is called Diviner Mining Incorporated.
I mean, there's a lot of heavy lifting that has to happen yet in this storyline to explain all of this in 2 20-minute episodes.
Well, we've got 48 minutes to do. Yeah, a lot.
Wow. Well, I look forward to learning what's going on here because that is pretty wild.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, let's move on to feedback and let's hear from Jeff X-Force 11.
Well, hello, Star Trek fans. It's Jeff, X-Force 11, leaving my feedback about Brink and Touch of Grey. 2 action-packed episodes, and it was so fun to get to see all of our crew together, working together, and it just was powerful. Asencia is just such an evil villain, and it's so good to see our group work around corners and think about things that they need to do. And even with not listening to Wesley fully and throwing off that plan, they were able to work around stuff well. And I just love it. This is truly what we love about Star Trek, about working around the corners, the problems, the issues, and working together as a team to solve everything. And I just really appreciate it. All right, those are my thoughts. X-Force is out.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, it's really important in Trek for the teams to work together, to solve the problems together, for there not to be a single hero. That's just the normal way that Star Trek needs to operate. That's, I think, what we all like about it.
Oh, agreed.
All right, let's hear what our kid correspondent Mahi has to say about these 2 episodes.
Mahi's personal log, stardate 10222.4. We have a mission to stop the war. With Zero in a brand new suit, Majel being logical and joining the team, a non-Starfleet one, the modified cloaking machine, and Gwyn as lead, we are ready. Dal is a much better team player now. His experiences have made him humble, kind, encouraging, and a good sport. His encouraging words for Gwyn surely boost her self-esteem and confidence to lead the mission. I loved it when Gwyn made the decision to save both Wesley and Illthuran. This showed that she really cared for them and wanted to leave no one behind. She is just like Admiral Janeway, the one willing to put herself in danger in order to save the people that she cares about. When half of the team led by Gwyn rescues Wesley, it was so weird to hear Wesley brag about his messy plan that was planned. But on seeing that only half of the crew came to rescue him, he completely freaked out and caused so much panic. Gwyn's surprising but logical decision to beam Illthuran and Wesley was a real leader's choice. Saving them was the most important to fix the timeline, as well as keep the team together, as Wesley had always suggested, even though they were stuck on Solum, at the mercy of evil Asencia. I wonder how Asencia captured the loom. She probably sacrificed someone to capture that creature, while they were erased. A powerful creature like the loom was also very distressed as a prisoner. I felt bad for the loom. The plan to use the Doctor to play Admiral Janeway to distract Asencia was brilliant. He was super dramatic. His commentary about his last moments of life with cardiomyopathy worsening and the rest is at silence was hilarious. He kept us totally fooled until then, but couldn't keep his identity secret anymore. He kept Asencia fooled long enough. I would love to have some of those telepathy skills like Zero. I would then be able to talk to anyone I need at any time without anybody else knowing. Asencia finally gets what she deserved. Good always wins over the bad. And Janeway will always be there to help everyone be bold for good, young or old or middle-aged. I still want for the protostar to be sent back to Tars Lamora and the timeline to be fixed, but in the meantime, all the adventure is keeping us very busy. End personal log.
Well, I think we first of all have to say she's not very impressed by time-traveling Wesley.
Yeah, she didn't like that he freaked out, didn't like that he bragged. Although that scene is quite funny when he's just like, yeah, everybody's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I planned all this. Yeah, she doesn't seem convinced.
No, it is really funny to follow her journey with Dal from how much she disliked him in the beginning because of the way he acted to how much she likes him now that he's supportive of Gwyn, who, of course, is her favorite character.
Right. And I think I'm going to follow her overanalysis or headcanon that Asencia fed several people to the loom to capture it.
Yeah, that is good headcanon.
It seems on brand for Asencia.
Yeah. I did notice Mahi is able to remember Illthuran, unlike you, who calls him something different every time.
I feel his name is more flexible.
That's funny.
Once again, I'm getting out-podcasted by a 9-year-old.
Yeah, her thing about having telepathy skills so she could talk to someone without anybody else knowing, I mean, that's pretty much what text messaging is.
To an extent.
Just needs a phone.
I expect it's the kind of thing, as a 9-year-old, you would love to be able to do in class without getting told off.
Oh, yeah. When I was a kid, we had to write notes. And you would always get caught.
Hence how useful telepathy would be in that situation.
Okay, I'll give her that.
Well, thank you, Mahi. That was another in-depth analysis.
Yeah, happy to have Mahi back for this episode, and we will also hear from her in the finale.
Oh, yeah, I hope so.
Well, we talked a little bit already about Speculation Corner, but we should talk a little bit more about it because with 2 episodes left, I think we know something bad's going to happen. Who is it going to happen to? Is it going to happen to Wesley Crusher? It's possible because we have impacted him as a traveler, but he's also the only person who is working to save this timeline. So if something happens to him, this timeline will collapse, which I don't think would happen.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure it's him, but he might, I guess he could not regain his traveler powers. And Janeway did take a little dig at him earlier about call your mother, which I thought was funny. Hopefully he does call her. So I'm not sure if he's the one who will suffer, but what do you think?
I would be really, really upset if after you got me to like Wesley Crusher, you kill him. I will be very annoyed at that.
Yeah, it's probably not what will happen. But also, he can't stick around because he's got too much power as a traveler. Unless they do take away his powers, then he could stick around.
That's true. I think I would like to see Wesley remain as a traveler.
Yeah, me too.
I'd like to see him get his powers back. I think he should fix his relationship with his mom.
I agree. He needs to chat with his mom.
Yeah. And then continue his role as a traveler. Maybe actually even bring the other travelers back.
And he really had a guilty look on his face about his mom. So I think they need to wrap that up.
Yeah. I will stand by my theory that the young Asencia, the young Vindicator, will sacrifice herself and cause the older Vindicator to cease her existence.
Yeah.
I have a theory here as well. The young Asencia will basically get herself eaten deliberately by a loom.
Oh! And will then be erased completely from the timeline. But, that's a good guess. You're so much better at guessing. Because I also try not to guess because I like to be surprised.
Right.
But that's a good guess, I think.
And I'll reiterate the idea that Illthuran will basically sacrifice his future life on Solum to go back and run Vindicator Mining Incorporated. Just to, correct the timeline. I mean, that will be his sacrifice. If he won't be able to go back until he's an old man.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, they've made me really like all these characters, and I want them all to survive, but I am relatively sure I'm not going to get that wish. And if I were writing the story, I wouldn't give me that wish either, because you still have to pull at my heartstrings. Though I don't know, when they were writing this season, did they know it was potentially the end of Prodigy? Did they think that they were going to get renewed? The end of season 1 didn't really have a big cliffhanger.
Yeah.
We knew what happened.
Yes.
We knew it.
Yeah.
I mean, it obviously could build to more, but everybody's story was tied up at least enough.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they're going to do that same thing, or are we going to be left on a cliff with a show that may not be renewed for a 3rd season, which would be very upsetting.
Yeah, that would not be great.
I think they've had enough time to not do that.
Yeah.
So hopefully they will at least wrap the story up enough that they don't leave us on the ledge if there's not a season 3, though I do obviously hope there is a season 3.
I very much hope Netflix renews it.
Right.
So I don't think I have any other speculation. I'm just really excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm excited to go and watch it. I'm sure it's going to be good. I have noted that the last 2 episodes of the season are rated pretty highly on IMDb. So hopefully that means we enjoy them.
Oh, yes.
Let's move to rating. So what do you give these 2 episodes out of 10?
I'm giving them a 10. Great episodes. Absolutely solid. Great Star Trek. Great away team action. They could have thrown in a red shirt. Last time they had an away mission with Tysus, there was 1 red shirt. Overall, thoroughly enjoyable episodes. Really good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed both episodes. I don't think there was as much humor as there has been in the past. I guess not enough jankum.
Yeah. For both a lot more serious episodes.
Very serious. And we are winding into the end of the season. So it makes sense that they would be more focused. But I think because I didn't have enough jankum laughs, I think I'll give them each a 9 instead of a 10.
Yeah.
But very enjoyable and very compelling. And every time we get to the end of one of these, I want to watch the next one. And it has,
right.
It has really taken a lot for us to sort of cautiously move through this to not get ahead of ourselves. And we, apart from when we had to jump ahead because of Comic-Con, we've been pretty careful and have managed to avoid most spoilers. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. It'll just be sad if we lose Asencia because
she's so good.
Wonderful voice acting.
I know, she's so good. And the young Asencia could actually be someone good for Solum. But I think your idea that her just sacrificing herself to the loom so that she just disappears completely from the timeline would actually solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, sad to see great villains go. I still miss Khan.
Yeah. And gosh, Khan went out with a bang.
Oh, did he ever?
Well, for now, I guess that wraps it up. That wraps up Season 2, Episodes 17 and 18. Come back next time for 19 and 20, the last 2 episodes of Season 2, and hopefully not the last 2 episodes ever of Star Trek Prodigy, an awesome Star Trek show.
Agreed.
In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own analysis of this or any of the episodes of Star Trek Prodigy, you can email us at RebingeIt@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us on the socials. We're on Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at RebingeIt. And we are part of a Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts.
Thanks for joining us on Star Trek Prodigy, a ReBingeIt podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.
And listen to Janeway.
And don't be a Borg.